In the vast expanse of the Andromeda sector, where mighty starships traverse the void between worlds and alien civilizations span entire star systems, there exists a truth that even the most advanced species refuse to acknowledge: sometimes the most powerful beings in the universe are also the most vulnerable. The Galactic Council speaks in hushed tones about the Ancient Ones, dragons whose breath could melt battleship hulls and whose wings could eclipse small moons. They are beings of legend, worshipped by some, feared by all. But legends, as it turns out, don't tell the whole story. What happens when a creature capable of destroying worlds becomes the very thing the universe has forgotten how to protect? What happens when the mightiest predator in known space becomes prey to something far more devastating than any weapon: loneliness? This is the story of Nyxera, the last young dragon in the galaxy, and Marcus Chen, a human engineer who didn't know that sometimes fixing broken things means fixing broken hearts. It's a tale that will remind you why humanity earned its place among the stars, not through conquest or technology, but through something far simpler and far more dangerous: the audacity to care when no one else will. In a universe that has forgotten how to be kind, watch what happens when the smallest act of compassion becomes the spark that ignites the greatest friendship the galaxy has ever seen. The salvage station orbiting Kepler 442b looked like a metallic tumor against the star-speckled darkness. Its rotating sections groaned under the weight of 1,000 discarded dreams, broken starships, obsolete mining equipment, and the scattered remains of civilizations that had reached for the stars only to find their fingers burned by the cold reality of space. Marcus Chen wiped grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better decades and squinted at the manifest floating on his workstation's holographic display. Another day, another shipment of galactic garbage that somehow needed to be sorted, catalogued, and either recycled or sold to the desperate colonies that couldn't afford new equipment. Shun! The voice of Station Commander Korvac echoed through the maintenance bay, its gravelly tone carrying the kind of irritation that suggested Marcus had somehow disappointed an already disappointed alien. We've got an anomaly in Bay 12. Something big came in with the vegan salvage haul. Marcus sighed and grabbed his toolkit. Korvac was a decent enough boss for a four-armed, perpetually grumpy Xerillian, but his idea of anomaly could range from a slightly unusual piece of scrap metal to a live fusion bomb. Working on a salvage station for 3 years had taught Marcus to expect the unexpected, though he still preferred his surprises to be non-explosive. Bay 12 was one of the larger cargo holds, designed to accommodate everything from personal shuttles to small frigates. As Marcus approached the massive doors, he could hear something that made him pause. It sounded almost like crying. The bay doors hissed open, revealing a chamber filled with the usual suspects: twisted hull plating, burnt-out engine components, and various pieces of technology that had clearly seen better millennia. But there, huddled behind a particularly large chunk of what looked like a destroyed space dock, was something that definitely didn't belong in a salvage yard. It was roughly the size of a small transport shuttle, covered in scales that shifted between deep purple and midnight black depending on the angle of the artificial lighting. 2 enormous wings were wrapped around its body like a protective cocoon, and a long, serpentine tail coiled nervously around what Marcus was beginning to realize were 4 powerful legs. A dragon. An honest-to-physics dragon, sitting in his salvage bay like an abandoned piece of cargo. Marcus had heard the stories, of course. Every spacer worth their plasma had heard whispers about the Ancient Ones, dragons that had ruled vast sectors of space before most current civilizations had even discovered fire. They were supposed to be mythical, legendary creatures from humanity's early days of galactic exploration. Yet here one sat, very real and very much in his workspace. The dragon's head lifted as Marcus approached, revealing eyes the size of dinner plates that held an intelligence that was both alien and startlingly familiar. Those eyes were also filled with tears, actual, honest tears that caught the bay's fluorescent lighting like liquid diamonds. "Oh," the dragon said, her voice a melodic rumble that seemed to resonate in Marcus's chest cavity. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be in your way. I'll move." Marcus blinked. In 3 years of salvage work, dealing with everything from sentient AI fragments to displaced alien refugees, nothing had prepared him for a polite dragon. "Wait," Marcus said, raising his hands in what he hoped was a calming gesture. "You don't have to move. I wasn't expecting to find anyone back here. Are you hurt?" The dragon's massive head tilted to one side, an expression of confusion crossing features that were surprisingly expressive for something with fangs longer than Marcus's forearms. "Hurt," she repeated, as if the concept was foreign. "No, I'm not hurt. Not physically." She paused, then added quietly, "I'm Nyxera. I was delivered here with the salvage from the vegan system." The implications of that statement hit Marcus like a meteor strike. Delivered? Someone sent you here as salvage? Nyxera's wings shifted, revealing more of her form. Despite her impressive size, there was something almost fragile about her posture, the way she seemed to be trying to make herself smaller. The Vegan Council declared me abandoned property, she explained, her voice carrying a weight of sadness that seemed to fill the entire bay. My guardian was killed in the Rigel conflict 3 months ago. Without a recognized caretaker, Dragon Law considers me salvage to be disposed of at the nearest appropriate facility. Marcus felt his engineering brain kicking into overdrive, the same mental process that helped him solve complex mechanical problems now working to process this impossible situation. Dragon Law, he repeated slowly. There are laws about dragons? Oh yes, Nyxera said, brightening slightly. Very comprehensive laws. They cover everything from territorial disputes to proper feeding schedules to what happens when a young dragon becomes orphaned. Her expression fell again. The laws are quite clear. If no one claims me within one galactic standard cycle, I'm to be recycled. The word recycled carried implications that made Marcus's stomach turn. He'd seen what happened to salvage that couldn't be repurposed or sold. It went into the molecular disassemblers, broken down to component atoms and fed back into the station's raw material reserves. That's insane, Marcus said before he could stop himself. You're a sentient being, not a piece of scrap metal. Nyxera's eyes widened with something that might have been surprise. You think I'm sentient? The question caught Marcus off guard. Of course you're sentient. You're talking to me, aren't you? You have feelings, thoughts, opinions. That makes you sentient in my book. Something shifted in Nyxera's expression, a cautious hope blooming across her draconic features. The Vegan Council said I was just an advanced biological machine, she said quietly. They said that without a proper owner to provide programming, I was just hardware without software. Marcus felt anger building in his chest, the kind of righteous fury that had gotten him into trouble more than once during his academy days. The idea that anyone could look at this obviously intelligent creature and declare her property was beyond his comprehension. Well, the Vegan Council can take their opinions and shove them in a black hole, Marcus said firmly. You're not property, and you're certainly not salvage. Nyxera stared at him for a long moment, and Marcus realized he was probably the first person in months to speak to her as an equal rather than as an object to be disposed of. But what am I supposed to do, she asked, and the vulnerability in her voice made Marcus want to find the Vegan Council and introduce them to some of humanity's more colorful engineering tools. No one wants a dragon anymore. We're too big, too expensive to feed, too dangerous according to galactic insurance standards. Even the collector species won't take us because we require too much specialized care. Marcus looked around the salvage bay, his mind already working through possibilities. The station had plenty of space, particularly in the outer sections that were only used for storage. Food might be a problem, but dragons were supposed to be remarkably efficient metabolically. And dangerous? Everything on a salvage station was dangerous if you didn't know how to handle it properly. How old are you? Marcus asked. 47 galactic standard years, Nyxera replied. Still considered a hatchling by dragon standards, though I stopped growing about 5 years ago. A hatchling. Marcus tried to wrap his mind around the concept. This massive, intelligent creature was essentially a teenager by her species standards, thrown away by a universe that had decided she was inconvenient. What did your guardian teach you? Marcus continued, his engineering brain formulating what he was starting to recognize as a completely insane plan. Oh, lots of things. Nyxera perked up, eager to share. Astrogation, basic mechanical repair, 14 different programming languages, advanced mathematics, stellar cartography, and how to prepare 37 different varieties of Terran coffee. Marcus blinked. Coffee? Guardian Vex said it was essential to understand human culture, and apparently coffee is central to human engineering psychology. Nyxera's expression grew wistful. I've never actually tasted it, but I know the theoretical preparation methods. The absurdity of the situation struck Marcus like a physical blow. Here was a dragon who had been trained to understand human culture, sitting in a salvage bay waiting to be recycled because the galaxy had decided she was unwanted baggage. Nyxera, Marcus said carefully, would you be interested in a job? Her massive head tilted again, confusion clear in her ancient eyes. A job? Yeah. Working here, on the station. We always need help with the bigger salvage operations, and someone who knows astrogation and mechanical repair would be incredibly valuable. Marcus was improvising now, but the more he thought about it, the more sense it made. The pay isn't great, but it comes with room and board. Nyxera stared at him for so long that Marcus began to wonder if he had somehow broken her with the suggestion. You want me to work here?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you're interested. I'd have to clear it with the station commander, but Korvok's always complaining about being understaffed." "But I'm a dragon," Nyxera said, as if this explained everything. "So? Dragons don't have jobs. Dragons have masters or owners or they're considered dangerous nuisances to be contained." Marcus felt his anger flare again. Well, maybe it's time that changed. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the ambient hum of the station's life support systems. Nyxera's eyes seemed to be searching Marcus's face for any sign of deception or mockery. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why would you want to help me? You don't even know me." Marcus considered the question seriously. Why was he volunteering to help a creature that could probably incinerate him with a sneeze? The rational answer was that it was the right thing to do, that no sentient being should be treated as disposable garbage. But there was something else, something more personal. "I know what it's like to be unwanted," Marcus said quietly. "I grew up in the Sol System's outer mining colonies. When the mines played out, suddenly, nobody wanted the miners either. We were surplus population, human salvage waiting to be recycled." Nyxera's expression softened. "But somebody gave me a chance," Marcus continued. "The Galactic Engineering Corps took a risk on a kid from nowhere with no prospects, and look how it turned out. Maybe it's time I passed that favor along." "You would really do that for me?" Nyxera asked, and there was such hope in her voice that Marcus felt his heart clench. "Hell yes, I would. But first, we need to convince my boss that hiring a dragon is a good business decision rather than a spectacular way to get fired." For the first time since Marcus had found her, Nyxera smiled, an expression that revealed impressive dental work but somehow managed to be endearing rather than terrifying. "I promise I'll work very hard," she said earnestly. "And I only eat about 50 pounds of refined metal per day, mostly iron and nickel, which should be readily available in a salvage environment." Marcus paused. "You eat metal?" "Oh yes. Dragons are silicon-based rather than carbon-based. We derive nutrition from various metals and crystalline structures. Guardian Vex always said I was very efficient compared to carbon-based life forms." The universe, Marcus reflected, kept finding new ways to surprise him. But an employee who could literally eat the garbage they were supposed to be processing? That was the kind of operational efficiency that would make even a grumpy Xerillian station commander take notice. "Nyxera," Marcus said, extending his hand in what he hoped was recognizable as a gesture of partnership, "I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." The dragon's massive claw extended carefully, encompassing Marcus's entire hand with surprising gentleness. "Thank you," she whispered, tears once again flowing freely. "Thank you for seeing me as more than just unwanted salvage." As Marcus looked up into those ancient, intelligent eyes, he realized that he had just made a decision that would probably change both their lives forever. Whether the change would be for better or worse remained to be seen, but, for the first time in months, Nyxera looked hopeful. And, sometimes, Marcus thought, hope was the most valuable thing you could salvage from the wreckage of the universe. Station Commander Korvok's office was a testament to organized chaos. For massive desks arranged in a square allowed the Xerillian to work on multiple projects simultaneously, his four arms moving independently as he processed shipping manifests, maintenance requests, and what appeared to be a particularly challenging crossword puzzle in an alien language Marcus couldn't identify. Marcus stood in the doorway, suddenly, aware of how completely insane his request was going to sound. Behind him, Nyxera waited nervously in the corridor, her massive form barely fitting in the station's main passages. "Commander," Marcus began, then stopped as all four of Korvok's eyes swiveled to focus on him. "Chun. Please tell me you have good news about the power coupling in Section 7. The Miners' Union representative from Proxima has been breathing down all four of my necks about it. Actually, sir, I wanted to discuss a personnel matter." Korvok's primary hands never stopped moving across his paperwork, but his secondary arms paused in their tasks. "Personnel? Chen, you're one of 3 humans on this entire station. Unless you're requesting a transfer or planning to clone yourself, I'm not sure what personnel matters we could possibly discuss. Marcus took a deep breath. Sir, I'd like to request permission to hire an additional team member for salvage operations. Hire someone? Now Korvac's full attention was focused on Marcus, all four arms coming to rest on his desks. Chen, our budget barely covers the staff we have. Unless this potential hire is willing to work for scrap metal and recycled air, I don't see how we could afford another employee. Well, actually, sir, she's willing to work for scrap metal. Literally. She eats it. The silence in the office stretched for several seconds before Korvac spoke again. Chen, are you feeling well? Did you hit your head on something in the salvage bay? Because what you just said makes absolutely no sense. Sir, with your permission, I'd like to introduce you to Nixera. She's a dragon, and she's currently classified as salvage awaiting disposal. Korvac's four eyes blinked in sequence, a nervous habit Marcus had learned to recognize as a sign that the station commander was either about to explode with anger or retreat into a state of bewildered confusion. A dragon, Korvac repeated slowly. Yes, sir. A real dragon. Not some kind of large lizard or misidentified alien species. Definitely a real dragon, sir. She talks, she thinks, she has advanced technical training, and, according to galactic law, she's considered salvage property due to her guardian's death in the Rigel conflict. Korvac was quiet for a long moment, his primary hands drumming against his desk in a complex rhythm that Marcus had learned indicated deep thought. Chen, in my 40 years of station management, I have dealt with union disputes, pirates, black market organ dealers, sentient gas clouds that wanted to negotiate shipping contracts, and a very memorable incident involving a time-displaced Terran cruise ship. But, this is the first time anyone has asked me to hire a mythological creature. She's not mythological, sir. She's right outside your office. Of course she is. Korvac stood, his impressive height making Marcus feel even more nervous about this entire conversation. Very well. Let me meet this dragon of yours. But, Chen, if this is some kind of elaborate practical joke, I'm assigning you to waste recycling duty for the next 6 months. Marcus stepped aside as Korvac approached the office door, his forearms clasped behind his back in a posture that suggested he was preparing to deal with yet another impossibility in a career full of them. Nixera was waiting in the corridor, her massive form coiled nervously against the bulkhead. When she saw Korvac emerge from his office, she immediately lowered her head in what Marcus recognized as a gesture of respectful submission. Commander Korvac, she said, her melodic voice echoing slightly in the enclosed space. I am Nixera, daughter of Vorthak the Starrender, ward of the late Guardian Vex. I formally request permission to work aboard your station in exchange for shelter and sustenance. Korvac stopped dead in his tracks, all four eyes wide with what Marcus could only describe as shock. By the 7 moons of Zerilia, the station commander breathed. You really are a dragon. Yes, sir. I understand this is unusual, but I can provide excellent references from my previous educational experiences, and I promise to follow all station regulations and safety protocols. Marcus watched as Korvac slowly walked around Nixera, examining her from different angles. The dragon remained perfectly still, allowing the inspection with patient dignity. What are your technical qualifications? Korvac asked, his tone shifting from shocked to professionally interested. I am certified in stellar navigation, basic through advanced mechanical repair, structural engineering, 14 programming languages including standard galactic and most regional dialects, and advanced materials science with a specialization in metallurgy. Korvac's secondary arms began counting on his fingers, tallying qualifications. Languages? Fluent in Standard Galactic, Terran Common, Zerillian Commercial, Vegan Diplomatic, Rigelian Technical, and approximately 30 other languages commonly used in this sector. Previous work experience? Nixera hesitated. I was educated and trained by Guardian Vex, but I have no formal employment history. Dragons are typically not considered for standard employment opportunities. Right, Korvac said, nodding as if this made perfect sense. And your dietary requirements? Approximately 50 pounds of refined metals per day, primarily iron, nickel, and copper. I can also derive nutrition from most alloys commonly found in salvaged equipment. I require no organic food, no life support beyond standard atmospheric pressure, and my waste products are inert metallic compounds that can be easily recycled. Marcus watched Korvac's expression change as the practical implications began to sink in. An employee who could literally eat the garbage they were processing, who spoke dozens of languages, who had advanced technical training, and who would never require sick leave for biological illnesses.
What about insurance? Korvac asked, his business mind clearly working through the logistics. Dragon-related workplace incidents must be expensive to cover.
Actually, sir, Marcus interjected, I checked the Galactic Employment Insurance database.
Dragons are classified as mythical entities for insurance purposes, which means standard rates apply since the insurance companies don't believe they actually exist.
Of course they don't, Korvac muttered.
Because that would be too simple.
Nixera shifted nervously. Commander, if my presence would cause difficulties for your operation, I understand. I know that dragons are not typically welcome in civilized society. Something in her tone seemed to catch Korvac's attention.
He looked up at her massive head, studying the sadness in her ancient eyes.
How long since your guardian died? He asked gently. 3 months, 4 days, and approximately 16 hours, Nixera replied with the precision of someone who had been counting every moment.
And, in that time, how many people have offered you employment or shelter? Nixera was quiet for a long moment.
Marcus is the first person to speak to me as anything other than a disposal problem.
Korvac looked at Marcus, then, back at Nixera, then, at Marcus again.
His primary hands resumed their drumming rhythm against the corridor bulkhead. You realize, he said finally, that hiring a dragon is going to raise eyebrows throughout the entire sector.
Yes, sir, Marcus replied. And that the insurance paperwork alone is going to be a nightmare. Probably, sir.
And that I'll have to completely reorganize work schedules and living arrangements to accommodate an employee who weighs several tons and breathes fire.
I actually don't breathe fire, Nixera interjected politely.
I exhale superheated plasma, but only when threatened or under extreme emotional stress.
I have excellent control over my defensive mechanisms. Superheated plasma, Korvac repeated.
Of course.
Because fire would be too conventional.
Marcus held his breath as he watched the station commander work through the decision. He could practically see the calculations running through Korvac's mind: risk versus benefit, bureaucratic complications versus operational advantages, the simple economics of running a salvage operation in the outer reaches of civilized space.
Chen, Korvac said finally, in your professional opinion, is this dragon capable of performing the duties required for our operation? Absolutely, sir. Her technical qualifications exceed those of anyone else on the station, including me. She could revolutionize our efficiency ratings. And, in your personal opinion, is she trustworthy?
Marcus looked at Nixera, remembering the careful gentleness with which she had shaken his hand, the vulnerability in her voice when she spoke of being unwanted. Sir, I would trust her with my life.
Korvac nodded slowly, then addressed Nixera directly.
Dragon Nixera, are you willing to abide by all station regulations, work schedules, and safety protocols without exception?
Yes, Commander. Are you willing to undergo a probationary period during which your performance will be closely monitored?
Of course, Commander.
And, are you willing to sign a standard employment contract that includes provisions for termination if your presence proves disruptive to station operations?
Nixera hesitated for just a moment, and Marcus could see the fear in her eyes, the terror of being discarded once again.
Yes, Commander, she said quietly.
Korvac clasped his 4 hands together in a gesture that Marcus had learned indicated a final decision.
Very well.
Dragon Nixera, I hereby offer you a probationary position as Senior Salvage Specialist aboard Kepler Station, with a starting salary of standard union rates plus metal rations as required for sustenance. Probationary period will last for 60 standard days, after which we will evaluate your performance and determine whether to offer permanent employment.
The corridor was silent for several heartbeats.
Then, Nixera's massive form began to tremble, and Marcus realized she was crying again.
Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for giving me a chance. Don't thank me yet, Korvac said gruffly. Thank me when you've survived Chen's training program.
He's the most thorough teacher on the station, which is why most of our new hires quit within the first week.
Marcus grinned. I prefer to think of my training methods as comprehensive.
You prefer to think of your training methods as in form of elaborate torture designed to weed out the weak, Korvac corrected. Which, admittedly, has resulted in a very competent crew. I promise I won't quit, Nixera said earnestly.
No matter how difficult the training might be. Korvok's expression softened slightly. Dragon Nixera, given what you've already survived, I somehow doubt that Chen's training program will be the thing that breaks you. As they made their way back toward the salvage bays, Marcus felt a strange sense of accomplishment. In the space of a single day, he had gone from processing routine salvage to fundamentally changing the life of a sentient being who had been written off by the rest of the galaxy. Marcus, Nixera said quietly as they walked, what will my job duties actually involve? Well, we'll start with basic salvage sorting and evaluation. You'll learn how to identify valuable components, assess the condition of recovered equipment, and determine the best methods for refurbishment or recycling. Marcus was already mentally organizing the training schedule. After that, we'll move on to repair work, documentation, and, eventually, complex restoration projects. And, I'll really be paid for this work? Absolutely. Standard galactic rates, plus we'll make sure you have access to all the metal rations you need. Korvok might be gruff, but he's fair. Nixera was quiet for a moment as they entered the salvage bay where she had been waiting just hours before. Marcus, why did you really decide to help me? The question caught him off guard. Marcus considered several answers, the obvious ones about doing the right thing, about giving everyone a fair chance, about basic decency in an indecent universe. But there was something else, something more personal that he hadn't quite acknowledged even to himself. You know what's funny, he said finally. When I first saw you, hiding behind that pile of scrap metal, you reminded me of myself when I first arrived at the Engineering Corps Academy. Scared, alone, convinced that everyone was going to realize I didn't belong and send me back where I came from. But you succeeded, Nixera pointed out. Yeah, but only because someone took a chance on me. Chief Engineer Morrison could have easily dismissed my application, kid from a failing mining colony, no formal education, no connections or influence. But she saw potential where others saw problems. Marcus looked around the salvage bay, at the organized chaos of machinery and metal that had become his home for the past 3 years. I guess I wanted to pay that forward. Besides, he added with a grin, you're probably going to be the most qualified employee this station has ever had. I should be thanking you for being willing to work here. Nixera's response was interrupted by the station's communication system crackling to life. Chen to Bay 12. Chen to Bay 12. We have an incoming priority salvage delivery, estimated arrival in 2 hours. High-value cargo requiring immediate processing. Marcus sighed and activated his comm unit. This is Chen. What kind of cargo are we talking about? Derelict Regelian cruiser. Automated distress beacon indicates possible survivors in stasis. This is a rescue operation, not standard salvage. The implications hit Marcus immediately. Rescue operations required speed, precision, and technical expertise well beyond normal salvage work. They were also incredibly dangerous, as there was no telling what condition the derelict ship might be in or what might have caused it to become derelict in the first place. Understood. I'll prep the heavy equipment. Marcus, Nixera said quietly, I could help with this. Marcus looked at her, considering. She had the technical qualifications, certainly, and her size and strength would be invaluable for handling heavy salvage work. But this would also be her first day on the job, jumping straight into one of the most challenging types of operations they performed. Are you sure you're ready for this? Rescue operations can be pretty intense. Nixera's expression grew determined, and, for the first time, Marcus caught a glimpse of the ancient strength that had made dragons legendary throughout the galaxy. Marcus, for 3 months I've been nothing but a burden, a problem to be solved or discarded. For the first time since Guardian Vex died, I have the chance to help save lives. Yes, I'm ready. Looking into those ancient, intelligent eyes, Marcus realized that Nixera wasn't just his new employee. She was his partner, his equal, and, quite possibly the most determined individual he had ever met. All right then, he said, reaching for his emergency equipment checklist. Let's go save some lives. Commander Korvok's office had been transformed. Where once 4 desks had struggled to contain the organized chaos of station management, now the space had been rearranged to accommodate meetings with beings significantly larger than the average humanoid. Nixera coiled comfortably in the expanded space, her massive form somehow managing to look both impressive and respectful as she waited for Korvok to speak. Marcus stood beside her, still processing the events of their rescue mission. The image of those empty stasis pods haunted him, 35 people who had trusted their lives to technology,
only to become victims of something far more malevolent than mechanical failure. Chen, Korvac began, settling behind his primary desk, I've just finished reviewing the mission logs from your rescue operation. 12 survivors recovered, successful evasion of hostile forces, and 0 casualties among our crew. By any measure, this was a textbook example of emergency response procedures. Marcus felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Thank you, sir. Though I should point out that the mission's success was largely due to Dragon Nixera's technical expertise and piloting skills. Which brings me to why I asked you both here, Korvac continued, his 4 eyes focusing intently on Nixera. Dragon Nixera, in the past 24 hours you have demonstrated capabilities that exceed those of anyone on my senior staff. You've proven yourself competent, reliable, and willing to risk your own safety for the welfare of complete strangers. Nixera shifted slightly, uncertainty flickering in her ancient eyes. Commander, I hope my performance has been satisfactory. Satisfactory? Korvac's gravelly laugh filled the office. Dragon Nixera, your performance has been extraordinary. Which is why I'm terminating your probationary period effective immediately. Marcus felt his heart sink. After everything they had accomplished, after proving herself beyond any reasonable doubt, they were still going to dismiss her? Sir, Marcus began, but Korvac held up one of his secondary hands. I'm terminating your probationary period, he continued, addressing Nixera directly, because I'm offering you a permanent position as Senior Technical Specialist, with a promotion to Department Supervisor and a salary increase commensurate with your demonstrated abilities. The silence in the office was so complete that Marcus could hear the distant hum of the station's life support systems. Nixera stared at Korvac with an expression of shocked disbelief. You want to promote me?" she asked quietly. Dragon Nixera, in 40 years of station management, I have never seen a new employee adapt so quickly to our operational requirements. You have technical skills that would be valuable on any vessel in the galaxy, and you've proven that you can function effectively under extreme pressure. Marcus watched as tears began to well up in Nixera's massive eyes. But there's more, Korvac continued. I've been in contact with the Galactic Labor Relations Board regarding your unique employment situation. It seems that your successful integration into our workforce has attracted considerable attention from progressive employers throughout the sector. Attention? Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure if the implications were positive or negative. Dragon Nixera, you are quite possibly the first of your species to be formally employed by a civilian organization since the Treaty of Rigel established the current galactic legal framework. Your success here is being viewed as a precedent-setting case for dragon rights and employment opportunities. Nixera was openly crying now, though her tears seemed to be a mixture of joy and overwhelming emotion rather than sadness. What does that mean, practically speaking? She managed to ask. It means that you've become something of a celebrity in civil rights circles. I've received employment inquiries from engineering firms, shipping companies, and even a few universities interested in hiring you for advanced research positions. Marcus felt a sudden spike of panic. After everything they had been through, was he about to lose his partner to some prestigious position elsewhere? However, Korvac continued, seemingly reading Marcus's expression, I have no intention of losing the best technical specialist this station has ever had. Which is why I'm prepared to match or exceed any competing offers, and why I'm implementing several station improvements specifically designed to accommodate your needs. Improvements? Nixera asked, confusion evident in her voice. Korvac activated a holographic display that showed detailed blueprints of the station structure. Expanded living quarters in Section 12, modified to provide appropriate space and furnishing for a dragon-sized resident. Dedicated workshop facilities equipped with tools scaled for your physical capabilities. And, most importantly, official recognition of your status as an equal member of this crew, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Marcus stared at the blueprints, realizing the scope of what Korvac was proposing. The modifications would represent a significant investment of time and resources, a clear statement that Nixera wasn't just a temporary solution to a staffing problem. Commander, Nixera said, her voice thick with emotion, why are you doing all this for me? Korvac leaned back in his chair, his expression growing thoughtful. Dragon Nixera, do you know what the most valuable resource in the galaxy is? Refined metals? Quantum crystals? Exotic matter for hyperspace drives? Competence, Korvac said simply. Genuine, reliable competence is rarer than any mineral and more valuable than any technology. I have spent decades trying to build a crew of competent, dedicated individuals who can be trusted to do their jobs without constant supervision. He gestured toward the holographic display still showing the station modifications.
You have demonstrated more competence in 24 hours than some employees show in years.
You've proven that you can work effectively with humans, handle complex technical challenges, perform under pressure, and maintain professional standards even in life-threatening situations.
Why would I let someone like that go to a competitor?
But I'm a dragon, Nixera protested. People fear us, or treat us as curiosities, or assume we're too dangerous for civilized society.
And people are idiots, Korvac replied bluntly.
I don't hire people, I hire competence, intelligence, and reliability. If those qualities happen to come in a package that weighs several tons and can exhale superheated plasma, so be it. I've worked with humans who were far more dangerous and considerably less trustworthy. Marcus found himself grinning at the station commander's matter-of-fact acceptance of the situation. Leave it to a pragmatic Cerulean to reduce the complex social implications of employing a dragon to simple business logic. There is one additional matter we need to discuss, Korvac continued, his tone becoming more serious.
The attack on the Regelian cruiser was not an isolated incident.
We've received reports of similar attacks throughout this sector, ships disabled, crews murdered or enslaved, valuable cargo stolen.
Pirates? Marcus asked.
Worse than pirates. Pirates steal cargo and leave witnesses when it's profitable. These attackers are systematically eliminating crew members even when there's no obvious benefit to doing so. The Galactic Security Force is calling them the Void Hunters, and they've classified the entire sector as a high-risk zone.
Nixera's expression grew troubled. What does this mean for our operations?
It means we're going to be seeing more rescue missions, more derelict ships, and more desperate survivors. It also means we're going to be targets ourselves if these Void Hunters decide that a salvage station is worth attacking.
Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The salvage station was lightly armed and designed for industrial operations, not military defense.
If they found themselves facing the same ships that had torn apart a Regelian cruiser, they would be in serious trouble. However, Korvac continued, we do have certain advantages that most civilian vessels lack. We have detailed knowledge of this sector's shipping routes, we have advanced sensor equipment for detecting derelict vessels, and now we have a technical specialist whose capabilities are uniquely suited for emergency rescue operations. You want us to actively hunt for survivors, Marcus realized. I want you to do what you did today, but on a larger scale and with better preparation.
There are innocent people dying out there, Chen.
People who trusted their lives to the safety of space travel, only to find themselves at the mercy of predators who see sentient life as just another commodity to be harvested. Marcus looked at Nixera, seeing the same determination in her ancient eyes that he felt building in his own chest.
What kind of support would we have for operations like that? Marcus asked. Whatever you need. Modified shuttles, advanced medical equipment, additional crew members if necessary.
The Galactic Emergency Response Fund has already approved funding for enhanced rescue capabilities, particularly in light of the current crisis.
And if we encounter these Void Hunters directly? Nixera asked. Korvac's expression grew grim.
Then, you do whatever is necessary to protect yourselves and any survivors in your care. The security force has classified the Void Hunters as hostile to all civilized life.
You are authorized to use any means necessary to defend against them.
The implications of that authorization were not lost on Marcus. In effect, they were being given carte blanche to treat any encounter with the Void Hunters as a combat situation. Commander, Nixera said quietly, if we're going to be conducting rescue operations in a hostile environment, I should probably mention that my defensive capabilities are more extensive than I initially indicated.
How extensive?
Korvac asked with the tone of someone who had learned to expect surprises from his dragon employee. Guardian Vex was a military pilot, as I mentioned. But she was also a former dragon cavalry officer. She made sure I received combat training appropriate to my species' capabilities.
Marcus stared at Nixera. Dragon cavalry?
Before the Treaty of Rigel, dragons and their guardians often served in military capacities. We were considered elite units due to our combination of intelligence, mobility, and firepower.
Nixera's expression grew somber.
The training was quite comprehensive.
Firepower?
Korvac asked. plasma breath capable of melting most known armor materials, electromagnetic pulse generation that can disable electronic systems, and physical strength sufficient to tear through standard hull plating. I also have advanced training in zero-gravity combat, boarding operations, and defensive flying techniques. The office was quiet for several moments as the implications sank in. Dragon Nixera, Korvac said finally, am I correct in understanding that you are essentially a one-dragon military unit disguised as a technical specialist? I prefer to think of myself as a technical specialist with a unique skill set, Nixera replied modestly. Marcus burst out laughing, unable to contain his amusement at the situation. Here he had been worried about Nixera fitting in with civilian station operations, when in reality she was probably the most militarily capable individual in the entire sector. Well, he said when he could speak again, I guess that explains why you handled the escape from those pirates so calmly. Oh, that wasn't particularly challenging, Nixera said. Guardian Vex used to make me practice evasion maneuvers against entire squadrons of fighters. One pirate ship was barely worth noticing. Korvac clasped his four hands together in a gesture that Marcus had learned indicated either satisfaction or resignation to the impossible. Very well. Dragon Nixera, your new position comes with enhanced security clearance and authorization to use whatever force you deem necessary to protect station personnel and rescue mission objectives. Chen, you'll be working closely with her to develop new protocols for operations in hostile territory. Understood, sir, Marcus replied. And, both of you should understand that what we're planning to do, actively seeking out survivors in a war zone, is going to be extremely dangerous. The Void Hunters have already demonstrated that they're willing to kill anyone who interferes with their operations. Marcus looked at Nixera, seeing the same resolve in her eyes that he felt in his own heart. Sir, he said, there are people out there who need help. People who don't deserve to die just because some psychopaths decided that human life is profitable. If we can save even a few of them, isn't that worth the risk? Guardian Vex always said that the measure of a person's worth was what they were willing to sacrifice for strangers, Nixera added quietly. I think she would approve of what we're planning to do. Korvac nodded slowly. In that case, I'll begin arranging for the necessary equipment modifications immediately. Your first priority mission launches in 48 hours, a merchant convoy that went missing near the Proxima relay station. Intelligence suggests they may have been hit by the same group that attacked the Rigelian cruiser. As they left Korvac's office, Marcus found himself marveling at how much his life had changed in the space of a single day. This morning he had been a routine salvage operator processing routine scrap metal. Now he was part of a rescue operation that could save countless lives, working alongside the most remarkable partner he could have imagined. Marcus, Nixera said as they walked toward their new workshop, are you having second thoughts about offering me that job? Marcus considered the question seriously. Was he concerned about the dangers they would face? Absolutely. Was he worried about the responsibility of saving lives in a war zone? Without question. But, was he having second thoughts about working with Nixera? Not for a second, he said firmly. You're the best partner I could have asked for. Nixera's expression brightened, and, for the first time since he had met her, Marcus saw genuine happiness in her ancient eyes. Then, let's go save some lives, she said simply. Looking ahead to their uncertain but purposeful future, Marcus couldn't think of anything he'd rather be doing. 6 months after Nixera's arrival at Kepler Station, the salvage bay that had once been her place of refuge had been transformed into something resembling the command center of a military rescue operation. Banks of communication equipment lined the walls, displaying real-time data from a dozen different star systems. Holographic charts tracked shipping routes, distress signals, and the increasingly bold movements of the Void Hunters throughout the sector. Marcus stood before the main display, studying the latest intelligence reports with the kind of focused intensity that had become his trademark over the past half-year. Beside him, Nixera's massive form was coiled around a specially designed workstation, her precise manipulator appendages dancing across multiple interfaces as she coordinated their current rescue mission. Status report, Marcus called out to the rest of their expanded team. Medical bay is prepped for 30 casualties, Dr. Sarah Chen called from her monitoring station. The young medic had transferred to Kepler Station specifically to work with the rescue team, drawn by reports of their innovative life-saving techniques. Enhanced shuttle bay shows green across the board, reported Lieutenant Torres, the former military pilot who had joined their operation after his discharge from the Galactic Defense Force. All 4 rescue shuttles are fueled and ready for immediate deployment. Intelligence analysis complete, announced Zara, a brilliant young Centaurian who served as their tactical analyst. Target vessel is the merchant hauler Prosperity's Dream, last seen 3 days ago in the Vega system.
Cargo manifest indicates medical supplies bound for the Proxima colonies.
Marcus nodded, his mind automatically processing the tactical implications. Medical supplies were high-value cargo that would definitely attract Void Hunter attention, but they also meant that any attack would be particularly devastating to the civilian populations depending on those shipments.
Threat assessment, he asked.
Based on previous attack patterns, moderate to high probability of Void Hunter presence, Zara replied.
However, the ship's last known position puts it near the edge of their usual operational area. We might be looking at an opportunity to get there before they do.
Or we might be walking into a trap, Nixera observed, her ancient eyes studying the tactical display with professional interest. The Void Hunters have been adapting their strategies.
Their last 3 attacks showed evidence of deliberate misdirection. Marcus considered this.
Over the past 6 months, their rescue operations had saved over 200 lives, but the Void Hunters had also become more sophisticated in response to the increased rescue activity. What had once been simple smash-and-grab operations had evolved into complex tactical scenarios designed to maximize casualties and minimize the chance of survivor recovery.
Recommendation?
Marcus asked, trusting Nixera's tactical judgment more than his own. We go in force, but we go smart, she replied immediately. 2 shuttles for primary rescue operations, 1 for tactical overwatch, and 1 held in reserve for emergency extraction. Full combat loadout, but we maintain rescue protocols unless directly threatened.
Agreed. Torres, what's our ETA to the target zone?
3 hours if we push the engines, the pilot replied. 4 hours if we want to arrive with full power reserves.
Split the difference. 3.5 hours, with enough reserve power for combat maneuvering if necessary.
Marcus turned to address the full team.
People, this is our 15th major rescue operation.
You all know the drill, but I'm going to say it anyway because I want everyone to go home alive tonight. The room fell silent, all attention focused on Marcus as he began the pre-mission briefing that had become ritual for their team.
Primary objective is always the rescue of survivors.
Everything else, cargo, ship salvage, tactical intelligence, is secondary to getting living, breathing people back to safety.
If you have to choose between saving a life and following orders, save the life. I'll handle the paperwork with command.
Murmurs of agreement rippled through the team. It was the same speech Marcus gave before every mission, but repetition had not diminished its importance. Secondary objective is the safety of our own team.
Dead heroes don't save anybody.
If a situation goes bad, we extract immediately and regroup for a safer approach. No one gets left behind, but no one plays unnecessary hero either.
What about the Void Hunters? Dr. Chen asked. Latest intelligence suggests they're taking prisoners rather than just killing crew members. Should that change our approach?
Marcus exchanged glances with Nixera. The shift in Void Hunter tactics had been troubling everyone in the rescue community. Killing crew members was evil enough, but the implications of taking prisoners suggested something far worse than simple piracy. If we encounter evidence of prisoner-taking, Nixera said quietly, we follow the intelligence back to its source and we extract anyone who's being held.
No exceptions, regardless of the risk. That's not standard protocol, Lieutenant Torres pointed out, though his tone suggested approval rather than criticism.
Standard protocol didn't account for dragons with military training and personal vendettas against people who hurt civilians, Marcus replied.
Nixera's right. If there are prisoners, we get them back.
The truth was that over the past 6 months, Nixera had evolved from a grateful refugee into something approaching a force of nature. Her technical skills had proven invaluable for rescue operations, but it was her combat capabilities that had turned their missions from desperate recovery efforts into sophisticated military operations. The Void Hunters had learned to fear the reports of a dragon working with the rescue teams.
3 separate encounters had ended with Void Hunter ships either destroyed or fleeing in terror after discovering that their prey was capable of fighting back. All right, people. Final equipment check, then we move out. Remember, we're not just saving lives today, we're showing the galaxy that good people don't have to be victims.
As the team dispersed to their final preparations, Marcus found himself alone with Nixera for the first time in days. How are you feeling about this one? He asked, recognizing the subtle signs of tension in her massive form.
Anxious, she admitted.
The Void Hunter's tactical evolution suggests a level of organization and planning that goes beyond simple criminal enterprise. I'm concerned that we're dealing with something larger and more dangerous than we initially realized.
Marcus nodded.
He had been having similar thoughts, particularly after reviewing the intelligence reports from their recent missions. The Void Hunters were operating with military precision, using sophisticated equipment, and demonstrating knowledge of Galactic Defense Force tactics that suggested either inside information or formal military training.
Whatever we're dealing with, Marcus said, we'll face it together. That's what partners do. Nixera's expression softened.
Guardian Vex would have liked you very much, Marcus. She always said that the best partnerships were built on mutual respect rather than hierarchy.
I wish I could have met her. She obviously raised an extraordinary dragon.
She raised me to be useful, Nixera corrected gently. You taught me that being useful and being valued are not the same thing. Before Marcus could respond to that observation, the station's communication system crackled to life.
Rescue Team Alpha, priority alert. We're receiving an active distress signal from the Prosperity stream.
Automated systems indicate hull breach and life support failure.
This is now a hot rescue situation. Marcus felt his adrenaline spike.
A hot rescue meant survivors were dying right now, with no time for careful planning or tactical analysis. All teams, emergency deployment, Marcus called out over the team communication system.
We go in hard and fast. Rescue first, everything else second.
The next few minutes were a controlled chaos of activity as the rescue team launched from Kepler Station with unprecedented speed. For shuttles departed in formation, their destination a point in space where over 100 lives hung in the balance. The Prosperity's dream was worse than Marcus had imagined. The massive merchant hauler hung dead in space, its hull torn open like a broken toy. Emergency lights flickered sporadically across the wreckage, creating an eerie strobe effect against the starfield. I'm reading life signs, Dr. Chen reported from the medical shuttle. Scattered throughout the ship, but concentrated in the central core. Looks like standard emergency protocol, crew and passengers gathered in the most defensible areas.
Any sign of the attackers?
Marcus asked, scanning the surrounding space for threats.
Negative on immediate hostiles, Lieutenant Torres replied from the tactical Overwatch shuttle. But, I'm reading residual energy signatures consistent with recent weapons fire.
Whatever hit them, it happened within the last few hours. Nixera's voice cut through the communication chatter with calm authority. I'm detecting active life support in sections 12 through 18. We need to get people out of there immediately, those systems won't last much longer.
The rescue operation that followed was a masterpiece of coordinated efficiency.
Marcus and Nixera led the primary rescue team deep into the bowels of the damaged ship, while Dr. Chen and her medical team established a triage station in one of the intact shuttle bays. They found the survivors huddled in what had once been the ship's main cargo bay, converted into an emergency shelter by quick-thinking crew members. 47 people, ranging from merchant crew to civilian passengers, all looking at their rescuers with the kind of desperate hope that made Marcus's heart clench. We're from Kepler Station Rescue Operations, Marcus announced to the group. We're going to get you out of here, but we need everyone to remain calm and follow our instructions exactly. An older woman who appeared to be the ship's captain approached them, her uniform torn and her face streaked with soot.
Thank the stars you found us, she said, relief evident in her voice.
The attackers hit us without warning. Disabled our engines, breached our hull, and then they just left.
Didn't take cargo, didn't demand ransom.
They just attacked us and disappeared.
Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. That didn't match the Void Hunter's usual pattern of operation.